It was just another ordinary day at the downtown diner. The clatter of dishes, the smell of coffee, and the low murmur of conversation filled the air. Most people didn't notice the young waitress weaving between tables with practiced grace. Her name was Lily. She smiled politely, refilled drinks, and made sure everyone was comfortable, even when they barely looked at her. But there was one thing most people did notice. A long jagged scar ran down the left side of her face, from her cheekbone to her jaw. And that's all some people saw when they looked at her. Lily had grown used to the stares, the whispers, even the snide comments when they thought she couldn't hear. It still hurt, but she'd learned to swallow it and keep moving. She needed the job. Every tip counted toward paying her mom's hospital bills and keeping their tiny apartment warm. But that afternoon, something different happened. Something that would change her life forever. A group of well-dressed customers walked in, laughing too loudly and taking up a booth in the corner. One of the women glanced at Lily and immediately leaned over to whisper something to her friend. They all laughed. When Lily came to take their order, one of them stared at her scar and said with a smirk, "Must be hard to look in the mirror every morning." Her cheeks flushed, but she didn't say a word. She just nodded and walked back to the kitchen, trying to blink away the tears. What Lily didn't know was that someone had been watching from the next table over. A quiet man in a simple suit, sipping black coffee. He looked like anyone else, until you noticed the gold watch, the sleek car parked outside, and the bodyguard discreetly seated nearby. No one at the diner knew who he really was. Alexander Grant, one of the youngest billionaires in the country. But he wasn't there for a business deal or a fancy lunch. He was there for a reason even Lily couldn't have imagined. As Lily stood behind the counter, pretending not to notice the giggles and cruel glances still coming from the corner booth, the man slowly got up. He walked straight toward her, calm and steady, his eyes locked on hers. The room quieted just a little. Then, without breaking eye contact, he said something that made everyone stop in their tracks. And in that moment, everything changed. But what did he say? And why was someone like him taking an interest in someone like her? You'll want to hear what happens next. Lily stared at the man in front of her, confused and unsure. He looked out of place in the small diner, but not in a flashy or arrogant way. There was something calm about him, almost gentle. She opened her mouth to speak, but before she could say anything, he smiled slightly and said, "I'd like to speak with you. When you have a moment." His voice was low, but carried weight. Not demanding, just certain. She nodded, still trying to figure out what was happening. As he returned to his table, the group in the corner whispered among themselves, now watching with even more interest. One of them scoffed loudly and rolled her eyes. Lily tried to ignore it, focusing on her usual tasks. But her hands trembled slightly as she refilled the coffee pots. No one ever spoke to her like that. Not with respect. Not with purpose. 10 minutes later, during a quiet lull, Lily brought the man his check and hesitated. "You said you wanted to speak with me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He looked up and nodded. "You're stronger than you think," he said. "The way you carry yourself, I've seen people with a lot more power and money break under far less." She blinked, taken aback. What did he mean? Why was he saying this? "May I ask your name?" "Lily," she replied quietly. "Lily Carter." He gave a short nod, like the name confirmed something for him. "Lily," he said, thoughtfully, "I've been looking for someone like you." Her brow furrowed. For what? But before he could answer, a customer near the front waved for a check, and Lily had to step away. Her thoughts raced. Who was this man? What did he want with her? And why did it feel like he knew something about her that even she didn't? Back at his table, Alexander watched her with an expression that was hard to read. It wasn't pity. It was something more, like recognition. Meanwhile, the group in the corner wasn't done. One of the women pulled out her phone and snapped a photo of Lily when her back was turned. Let's see how many people think of billionaires interested in asterisk that asterisk, she snickered. But the billionaire had noticed. As the woman giggled and showed the photo to her friends, Alexander quietly stood up, eyes still fixed on Lily. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a sleek black business card, placing it gently on the counter beside her register before walking toward the door. Lily only saw it after he left. It was blank on one side, but on the other it read, asterisk asterisk Alexander Grant, G Industries asterisk asterisk, and a private number. She picked it up slowly, heart pounding. What did this mean? And why did it feel like her world was about to turn upside down? Lily stared at the card in her hand long after the man had left. She turned it over again and again, as if some hidden meaning might suddenly appear. Alexander Grant. She'd heard the name before, on the news, in magazines, in passing conversations about billionaires and tech empires. What was someone like asterisk him asterisk doing in a rundown diner on the edge of town? And why had he looked at her like she mattered? The rest of her shift dragged on, every second heavy with questions she couldn't answer. The group in the corner finally left, but not before tossing a crumpled napkin at her feet. On it, in smudged lipstick, someone had written, asterisk, he's just playing with you asterisk Lily didn't cry. She just picked it up, tossed it away, and kept working. Later that night, back in the small apartment she shared with her mom, Lily sat at the kitchen table, the card still in her hand. Her mother, pale and tired from treatments, noticed the expression on her daughter's face. Everything okay, sweetheart? She asked softly. Lily hesitated, then nodded. Just weird day. Her mother smiled gently. You've had more than your share of those. Lily thought about telling her, but something held her back. It still didn't feel real. Meanwhile, across town, Alexander sat in his private office, looking through a digital file. Lily Carter, age 24. Working 2 jobs. Raised by a single mother. No known criminal record. No major social media presence. And that scar, he paused on the photo for a long moment. The result of a car accident 6 years ago. She had been driving. Her father hadn't survived. His expression darkened. Sir, his assistant said from the doorway, are you sure about this? I'm not offering charity, Alexander replied. I see something in her. Most people would have collapsed after everything she's lived through. She didn't. That means something. But not everyone around him agreed. News of his visit to the diner had already started circulating within his inner circle. Board members whispered. Investors asked questions. A few even suggested it was some kind of publicity stunt. And then there was Olivia, Alexander's longtime business partner and childhood friend. She'd always been loyal, but tonight she sat across from him with arms folded, suspicion in her eyes. She's not part of our world, Olivia said. You know that. Maybe that's the point, he replied. Outside the windows, the city lights flickered against the dark sky. Somewhere out there, Lily was still holding his card, wondering, doubting. And she had no idea that this was only the beginning. The next morning, Lily stood in front of the diner's employee entrance, staring down at the card one more time. She hadn't called. She hadn't even told anyone, except her best friend Mia, who reacted with wide eyes at about 1,000 questions. Lily, billionaires don't just show up out of nowhere and hand out cards unless something big is going on, she'd said. You have to call him. But Lily didn't know what scared her more, what might happen if she did, or what might happen if she didn't. Inside, the diner felt colder than usual. A few customers sat at tables, and the usual hum of conversation was missing. People were whispering. Lily could feel their eyes on her. She overheard one customer murmuring about some rich guy being here yesterday. Word had spread. Fast. Then around noon it happened. 2 black cars pulled up outside. The kind you only ever saw in movies or parked outside luxury hotels. The diner door opened, and in stepped Alexander Grant, again. This time, he wasn't alone. 2 men in suits followed him in. The chatter stopped completely. Even the cook peeked out from the kitchen. Lily froze, holding a tray of coffee mugs. Alexander walked up to her slowly, the same calm look in his eyes. "You didn't call," he said softly. "I didn't know if I should," Lily replied, barely managing the words. "I understand," he said. "But I need to ask you something important. Can you come with me? Just for a few hours. I promise I'll bring you back safely." Lily looked around. Everyone was watching. Her manager stepped forward, clearly about to object, but Alexander pulled out a white envelope and handed it to him. "For the inconvenience," he said. Shaking, Lily took off her apron. "Okay," she whispered. They stepped out into the bright daylight, and the door swung shut behind them. As they drove through the city, Lily tried not to panic. She asked where they were going, but Alexander only said, somewhere private, somewhere safe. The car finally stopped outside a tall, glass building. Security guards nodded as they entered. Up an elevator, through a sleek hallway, and then into a room Lily never expected. Walls covered in photos, documents, news articles, and in the center, a blown-up image of Lily as a child. Her hand flew to her mouth. "What is this?" she asked, her voice shaking. Alexander looked at her, serious now. "There's something you don't know. Something about your past, and why I've really been looking for you." Lily's breath caught. And in that instant, everything she thought she knew started to unravel. Lily stood frozen in the middle of the quiet high-tech room, her eyes darting across the photos. Most were old, grainy, black and white, some of them clearly scanned from newspapers or surveillance footage. And there she was in several of them, as a child, maybe 5 or 6 years old, holding hands with her father, laughing on a playground, sitting on a hospital bed. But the pictures didn't just feature her. Another man appeared in multiple shots, tall, well-dressed, and always with a protective hand resting on her shoulder. She didn't recognize him. Alexander walked to the edge of the room, picked up a slim folder, and handed it to her. "Your father," he said quietly, "wasn't just a mechanic like you were told. He used to work for my company, in cybersecurity, one of the best we ever had." Lily's hands trembled as she opened the file. Inside were classified project names, technical reports, and internal memos, many with her father's name at the bottom. But something stood out. A letter marked confidential and dated 2 weeks before the crash. It warned of a breach, something about someone on the inside leaking sensitive information. He was going to expose it, Alexander continued. Then he died in that accident, and the case was buried. Lily shook her head slowly. No, he wasn't the kind of man to get involved in something dangerous. He fixed cars, helped my mom with bills, took me to school. "I believe you," Alexander said. "But your scar—" "Lily, I don't think that crash was an accident. And I think someone didn't want your father to talk." Lily backed away from the table, her mind spinning. She had lived all these years thinking it was just a tragic twist of fate, a rainy night, a slippery road. But now, everything she thought she knew felt like a lie. And then came the second twist, one that made her stomach drop. Alexander moved to a security panel and tapped the screen. It flickered, showing grainy footage from a week ago. A woman entering the same diner Lily worked at, tall, with sunglasses and a red coat. The camera caught her face just briefly. "Recognize her?" he asked. Lily leaned in. Her breath caught. It was Olivia, Alexander's business partner. The same woman who said Lily didn't belong in his world. "She's not just my colleague," Alexander said. "She's the one your father was investigating before he died. And now, for some reason, she's watching **U**." Lily's voice cracked. "Why me?" Alexander's face was grim. "That's what we need to find out before she makes her next move." And just then, his phone buzzed. He looked down. His face went pale. "She already has." Alexander's jaw tightened as he stared at his phone screen. He didn't say anything for a moment, just handed the device to Lily. On it was a photo taken only minutes ago. Her mother, at home, with a message typed across the image, *times up. "She talks or the past stays buried. Your choice, *." Lily's knees went weak. What did she want from me? "I don't know anything." "She thinks you might," Alexander said, already moving toward the door. "Or maybe she just wants to scare you into silence. Either way, we can't wait." They rushed out, back into the elevator, down to the black car that was already waiting. The city flew past them in a blur of lights and noise. Lily's heart pounded as she tried to make sense of everything. Her father's secret work, the crash, Olivia's threat, and now her mom in danger because of something that happened years ago. When they arrived at the apartment, the door was wide open. Lily ran in first. "Mom?" No answer. She rushed through the living room and into the kitchen, where she found her mother seated calmly at the table, a cup of tea in front of her. Across from her sat Olivia. Alexander stepped in right behind Lily, eyes narrowing. "It's over, Olivia." But Olivia didn't look rattled. She smiled slowly. "You always were dramatic, Alex." Lily moved protectively toward her mom, who reached out and grabbed her hand. "I'm okay," her mother whispered. "She didn't hurt me." "Why are you doing this?" Lily asked Olivia, her voice shaking. Olivia stood, her expression cold. "Because your father was going to ruin everything we built, and I thought I ended it the night of that crash. But then I saw your face in that diner, and it was like staring at him all over again. You were a loose end I couldn't ignore." Alexander stepped forward. "It's too late. I reopened the files. The evidence is already on its way to the authorities." Olivia's smile faded. "You'll never outrun what you did," he added. "This ends now." As sirens wailed in the distance, Olivia's shoulders dropped. She said nothing else, just waited quietly as police lights flashed through the windows a few minutes later. Lily stood in stunned silence as Olivia was led away. But just as things seemed to calm, her mother looked up at her and said something Lily never expected. "She wasn't the only one with secrets, sweetheart. There's something about your father I never told you." Lily's heart skipped. "What do you mean?" Her mother hesitated, then whispered, "He didn't die in that crash. At least, not the way they said." And just like that, everything Lily thought was over was only beginning. Lily stared at her mother, stunned. "What do you mean he didn't die in the crash?" Her mom took a shaky breath, as if letting go of a truth she'd held for years. "After the accident, I was told he died instantly. That's what the doctors, the police, everyone said. But a few weeks later, I got a call. A man's voice. He told me your father was alive, but in hiding. He said your dad had uncovered something dangerous, And faking his death was the only way to protect you, to protect us. Lily felt her hands go cold. Why didn't you tell me? I was scared, her mom said, eyes filling with tears. You were just a teenager, grieving. I didn't want to give you false hope. And when years passed without another word, I thought maybe it was really over. Alexander stepped closer, his voice calm. We can find out. If he's alive, we'll know. The following weeks were a whirlwind. Authorities investigated Olivia and the full extent of her actions. Hidden financial trails and corrupted files confirmed everything Alexander and Lily had uncovered. The scandal hit the news, and overnight, the story of a billionaire uncovering corporate betrayal with the help of a waitress made headlines. Phrases like asterisk scared waitress hero, asterisk billionaire exposed secret conspiracy, asterisk and asterisk forgotten daughter of whistleblower asterisk began trending. But Lily stayed quiet, letting the storm pass. Alexander offered her more than help. He gave her a new start. A role at one of his foundations, where she could help others who felt invisible or judged. At first, she hesitated. But eventually, she said yes. Not because of the attention or the money, but because she finally felt like she had a voice. Then one day, a letter arrived. No return address. Inside was a single photo. Her father, standing in front of a cabin deep in the woods, holding a newspaper with that week's date. On the back, just one line written in careful handwriting. Asterisk, I've never stopped watching over you. I'm proud of who you've become. Asterisk. Lily clutched the photo to her chest and cried for the first time in years, not from pain, but from peace. The scar on her face never faded. But now, when people looked at her, she didn't shrink or hide. She met their gaze with strength. What began in a quiet diner as whispers and ridicule had led her to a truth far bigger than she ever imagined. In the end, it wasn't about money, power, or secrets. It was about identity, courage, and the choice to rise, no matter how broken the world tried to make her. And Lily chose to rise, always.